Welcome to an unexpected late Condor DM show. Tonight, I couldn't pull off my normal members only stream as I will be doing the topic of the stream on Monday. It's been a bit of a week or so of extreme, unexpected things, and I'm a consistent person, especially when it comes to getting YouTube stuff done, and quite disappointed at the outcome. Like I've been going for months, pretty consistent. I like to keep that on some level of being professional on here, but it's like, wow, real life creeping up, and sadly, this doesn't pay for life. So if it did, I'd 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 more be bowing to the whims of this, just like you would a job to make your money to pay your bills, right? You lean into something. I've had to in one case, it was a family gimmick, unexpected, but too much to do a stream the night I had family visiting, and then other nights were just the real world catching up with me. Finally giving me a pinch and unexpected changes for the most part good. As far as personal life away from this goes, but is it good here? It's inconsistent. I'm unhappy. My main supportive people here, I think, pretty much get it. Like they're good. But when it comes to the rest, who knows? And I know people are busy tonight. I know there's actual plays. I know Max had his panel tonight. Not sure if they're even done. I didn't get a chance to watch, to be honest. I seen the topic for Legion of Mist stream, which is aim at improving combat is going to be the main issue there. I think that's what they're going to talk about, is improving combat. It's such a general topic, and there's one statement Max made on an interview with me that he got from somebody else, but it's something I knew since I was younger, and I always bring him up because he reminded me of this statement and how important it is to the hobby and understanding things. It's wisdom that should be reminded to everybody in the hobby. Gaming is personal. So in some cases, what you really do enjoy about something might not be what the next person enjoys about that thing. Some people really enjoy developing their character and casual dialogue in the game and really getting into the social interaction. But they'll just like it for improving their experience, just having fun, and developing the character. That's what they'll appreciate about it. I go to the next person who would tell me the same thing. I really love the social interaction part of the game. But when you focus on when they talk, these are people that enjoy the gamey aspect of social interaction, not developing the character, but getting yourself a better place in the world, better off with a character, and a way of like looking at social interaction is to gain information, provide advantages, look for opportunities in what's said. And they love the gamey aspect of social interaction, while the next person might really just enjoy it for the fun of developing the character and talking in character. Uh, so when it comes to like, well, what makes social interaction better if you're talking about both sides, right? That's You hit combat with this idea. I like faster combat, right? In that general sense. But there's some people that will tell me, and I appreciate this side of it too. I think there's a combination, speed and flow. And flow is, I would agree with anyone who says flow is not just speed, but it doesn't have to be going super fast if you got sort of a flow of things feel like they're moving through the fight. You're seeing things are going pretty smoothly. A sort of flow like that, I guess, in a vague way. Speeding up combat is straightforward. You automatically that's less vague and clearly stated. So I like faster combat. And D&D, old school D&D had this idea of hit points being something where you can look at them like exhausting you. Where in reality, even though you're attacking, you're not really hitting the person until maybe the last final attack where you take the last of the hit points, and then you finally stab whatever the monster that you're fighting and kill it. Well, there's an alternative way of looking at D&D hit points. That means representing the physical body, and both sides are presented in their own ways and talked about throughout the evolution of old school Dungeons and Dragons, the TSR editions. A lot of games outside of TSR, I think they caught on to something that I think this is why TSR never just abandoned this way of looking at hit points. Was the more it's attached to the physical, and the more damage can be, say, explained in a very effective, on the edge way of explaining like what's happening. Like if you're taking a lot of hit points of damage, that means your body's getting curved up, right? It helps the imagination picture when you're describing damage, physical damage, attacks on the body, stuff like this. And it's easy to avoid being repetitive. Just pay attention to yourself. Like if you're repeating something, well, next time you can't say that again, right? It's not hard to get into a habit of making sure you're not repetitive on something. So that's never an issue. I find it better for details. Now, I find it faster and works better when the DM describes the outcome of the attack, say, of the player character. Because first off, there's an authority with the game master. If you're someone like me who's a little out there, if you say a detail when you're describing an outcome, if you're the type that wants your players to listen, like I want my players to listen, because if I say something that should maybe affect the monster, give an advantage to the player character, my player characters know to listen because I purposely want them to, because I want them to catch not missteps. I'm going with what I feel. So if what I feel causes an opportunity, I really don't. I just don't see that as a bad thing for the player. I want players to pick up on it. So I have authority, am quick. I can get straight to the description. No asking players to do the job. I find the players listening, since they're so used to listening to me, the game master, describe things for the point of moving the imagination along, it works better on this. It's more effective overall to hear me explain the outcome quickly. What I do is I allow players to describe their attack initially, because damage is a lot easier to manufacture and be less repetitive if you hear the details of the attack, even if it's at the body. Like I swing it this way, I'm swinging, whatever. What you take the attack, and simply, if it's successful, you continue it to whatever you imagine the outcome of that attack to be. Pretty simple, straightforward. But again, any details you throw in there, like blood pours on the ground, blood squirting out of the head of, like, where the head was on the goblin's body that you just chopped off. Like I want players to hear sicko stuff and be able to and have that brutality painted in their mind about combat. So I think fast delivery of basic actions, because it's a lot easier to say, well, you're already going to say what you're doing for your turn, right? All I'm doing is getting you to answer a real quick question, like you're swinging the sword, how you swinging the sword. Give me the pinch of flavor. It takes it's a lot easier on players too. It's not complicated to say you're going to do something either fancy or you know what I mean, just straight at it. I'm just going straight. I'm swinging like for a home run, baby. Okay, all right. I could for each way you might attack, I can think of a number of things that will run through my mind. Like your explanation will already move my imagination. So in a way, you'll already give me the outcome, and then what I'll do is I'll deliver it really quickly, cleanly, and it will work well because players are more, how can I say, trained into getting used to taking my words and having the imagination move along. Players, they're on the other end, the imagination they have more power over is not each other, it's over me. That's why I tell players, like, look, I'm trying to think what you might be thinking. Like, these are instinctive things I'm doing. If you tell me what your intention is before you do something, like, I'm doing this, but here's like an outcome I'm looking for. You might think there could be like 100, man. If I tell him, like, he'll say no. It doesn't mean you get an automatic yes. In some cases, you could. Uh, but in a lot of cases, it's I'm trying to look to give you the opportunity for the thing you're aiming for. And if you're telling me how you think or what your intentions are, part of that is me getting to know you better as a person. Because I mean, there's only a number of times I can hear you describe what your intention is to something before I start catching on to your way of thinking, which is a benefit to you as a player for me to know how you think. So you shouldn't need a game to tell you, tell the game master, like in Burning Wheel recently, there's parts where you got to describe what you're going to do and describe outcomes. Well, it's an up and down thing for me. I don't mind it. I mean, overall, I don't judge Burning Wheel as a bad game because it has all of that in it. And in some cases, I see the benefits of doing it because I can enjoy a variety of ways of gaming. But it's like you should never need a game to tell you to say what your intentions are. I don't know how many times I've seen players where I'll see them go to do something, and it's you can't just say like, and you got to be fair to the game master. There's no way you can say, man, it's like likely he would know what I'm looking for, man. In most situations, when I look at situations players give me, there could be like, I mean, 80 outcomes, 50 outcomes that are quite all possible. And it's I'm not playing the character. I'm still sort of getting to know the characters. So there's not an instinctive way of thinking towards the character when you're trying to do actions all the time. Like, so you all know your character better than I know your character earlier, especially in the game. And so there's still, as you're developing a character in your mind, it becomes real in front of us. You will still be more intimate with that character and who they are. So now you could say he or she wouldn't do something. You would just know instinctively. I promise you, at that stage, I'm still somewhat learning, so are the other players, about your character who you now know really well. So when you're telling me you should know my character would go for this, I might not. So it's just trying to be real with players that you're not always going to be in the vein of thinking what they have in their minds, their intentions. And it's not that I want to say yes to your intentions like cheating or making the game too easy. Don't get it wrong. But if there's possible 80 outcomes, I want to know if I'm going to give you, if I'm going to choose 3 or 4 you could possibly end up in. I am trying my best to actually get the one you want in the mix of possibilities. Right? So say it all the time, what your intention is. Do not be afraid. Do not think a game master is going to jack that thing away from you or saying it is bad karma. It's not. Too often does it work against you that, I would say in some cases, depending on the players, 90+% of the time, if they do not say what they are intending to get out of something, even like they wouldn't even hear a suggestion that that was going to be the outcome. They'll hear something completely alternative to what they were thinking. So part of getting on the same page with people is the more you let them into your thinking, the more they get closer to being able to then predict things or understand things or instinctively know things. Like your game master will get to know you better and faster by you sharing intentions. Then at a certain point, they'll probably come up with options like, I was thinking this, and you might hear and go, yeah, yeah. And he's thinking that because he knows you and other people might want something like that. But he knows that from time where you're being open with him, so he gets to know you in a deeper sense, right? And it's the relationship can start sort of new every time you're starting a new character with a game master, because I might know how you think with the wizard, but now you're going to play a fighter. Like, don't get it wrong, the education on the first one should still be mostly intact and working, but there's new elements that you're going to then present. There's so many different sides of us that we when I hear about simple statements like players and game masters getting to know each other really well, it's like life. It's not that simple. It never has been that simple. You won't just know things as much as you can get lucky sometimes, but I mean, a lot of it's not luck. It's just you can game with some people if you don't try to understand them. You could be around people you're around for 20 years and they do things that blow your mind because, well, if you would have paid more attention, this thing would not be shocking. But for 20 years, you didn't. So it is. Right? But you should not be guilty of having that issue. But a lot of people end up in that exact spot where they know somebody for 10, 20 years, something happens, and they're like, I can't believe he did that or she did that. And it's like, well, if you were paying attention, you would have. I did a video today, really quick, we're going over the Dark Sun thing. So I heard a strong rumor that they're taking slavery out of Dark Sun. I'm like, Dark Sun is a big basis in the oppression side of Dark Sun is slavery. It's actually deep into the lore of what Dark Sun is. It's a place layered with oppression. If you want to look at dictators, powerful dictators, overwhelming dictators, racism, bigotry of all sorts, slavery. It's an oppression warehouse. And the idea is what happens in a world where all this oppression is upon you? How do you survive in it? And how do you succeed while surviving? And it's a struggle fest. That's what Dark Sun is. It's a struggle fest to succeed beyond where you're at. That's just, look, that's going to be the aim of all going in to any D&D game. We know this. This is basic. There's no way they were going to change that going into Dark Sun. So what's Dark Sun? Dark Sun is like it's it's like putting D&D on very hard, like extremely hard mode, and just going there is potential oppression and other things you find in other places in D&D, and it's all meant to play the challenges, the bad. That's why you're sort of the good, or you're more like a mix of good and neutral versus evil. Evil is somewhat represented not just by monsters, but by the evil rulers, the evil this. And yes, a lot of that is going to be based in things we call bigotry, right? Like dictators ruling over and giving favoritism to certain people. It's going to be like racism. There's going to be sexism. These are common things that happen with twisted mindsets. Right? So it's not a surprise that they'll show up in Dark Sun and Conan slavery. And if you study history, slavery doesn't like just start where it's like one race enslaving another race. It just starts where people are enslaving their own people. So if you're a nerd in this hobby and you study the history and you study what slavery is, It creates a lot of weird heroes, interesting people throughout life that you study and what they went through. And if you want to create a world where characters like that can exist, these brave, struggling people that said things, that did this, they say it under conditions of extreme oppression. They're brave under conditions of extreme oppression. They're interesting under conditions of extreme oppression. And you realize the oppression helps create the living on the edge, the heroic side to some people. So what do? We give the bigotry a place in the world, right? And when evil comes, it brings a lot of these expected things with it: slavery, oppression of every sort you could imagine. Makes it hard for you to get into a place because you might get rejected because of who you are. But we also know that it's none of this inspires people to go and become wicked in the process. That's what you learn with D&D. That's why the whole satanic panic thing ended up being foolish. It is a game, and people don't get confused. Nobody watches Conan and becomes like I want to be a slave master afterwards. It's the same thing with Dark Sun. I've never heard of anybody being inspired by anything other than understanding that their characters are fighting against oppression of all kinds. And that it makes sense because this is the way evil and wickedness would be presented that we know of. It's not like there's 50 million ways to do this. There's only so many different ways. And if we're talking about human mindsets, this is going to be the outcome. Power, going after the most common layers of things are going to lead to censoring people, holding people down, enslaving people, controlling people. It's all about some form of control, right? And everybody, you got to deal with that when people want to aim a little higher than they should. Control of other people, be it through hate, laws, right? Violence. It's control. And you'll see in places where there's a lot of power and there's fighting over that, because control will become a big issue. And it naturally plays itself out in a place like Dark Sun. Dark Sun is built off being this powerful gimmick where people are fighting over power. So what happens? Well, it gets to the point where all the decent people are just offed. And then even out of the wicked ones, the ones who don't want to totally destroy everything are the ones that end up somewhat. It's like, imagine you're the evil guy, but you're not as bad as the other evil guys. That's where we're at with Dark Sun. Dark Sun is like, it's evil. There's evil leaders. But at least in some cases, you can go shopping and breathe and live where they run the show. So it's a weird story, but it's in a sort of insane asylum. And it's a bit of a Mad Max. Dark Sun is a Mad Max, but you don't get this Mad Max crazed world unless you have this level of oppression, slavery, stuff like this. This is what gets you to the mindset, to the place, to the people behaving a certain way, what they're fighting, what they're resisting. In a world where none of this is happening, you don't need these interesting characters to arrive that are brave, out there, outgoing. They want to arrive in the same way. So if you want characters that you see in old stories, when you look back, what you'll find is a lot of oppression and other weird things that make them have to overcome their own self and become these people that you see. So if you got rid of slavery from Dark Sun, you would be castrating the entire setting, the entire gimmick. I mean, watering down wouldn't be a fair way of describing it. You're absolutely taking a wrecking ball to Dark Sun. Dark Sun, the one thing you can't mess with Dark Sun is the oppression, the evilness, the slavery, the tyrants. You've got to leave that alone. That is what makes Dark Sun the insane asylum that it is. There you go. And even if they move timelines, like everybody becomes free, slavery ends. Well, who did this? Why? You got to think of Dark Sun as a place that feels so doomed, and you should want that feeling to come across your players when you run Dark Sun. I always sort of try to move in that direction, never force it, but make everything seem like it's you're at the end. Like there's who knows if this will all be here tomorrow, let alone next week, let alone next year. You got to think of Dark Sun like it's a place where those who haven't given up are under extreme pressure, all the hate, but many have. Like Dark Sun is a broken end of time, end of the world. Very few people would possibly believe there's a bright future for Dark Sun, the setting. It is meant to be that the light is going out, baby. The game is over. And it's lawless in a lot of areas. Society outside of certain places has completely broken down. It is the Wild West, and some fight to just get by. Very few care about the future, if there is even one to care about, and the rest have just been broken fucking people that have given up. That's Dark Sun. Dark Sun. Dark Sun is a lot of the most energetic. The majority of energetic people are short term living people. That means they only care about tomorrow. They don't even care about next year. So they don't concern themselves. That's not the thrill to their go. It's in the moment living. Outside of that, there are a few people you can possibly find in the world that think we can save this. No, no, not Dark Sun. You're not saving shit. In Dark Sun, you want it to feel bleak. You want it to feel like it had that. It's no matter what you see, no matter how well this is, the sky above, the dirtiness, the reminder that people are broken in Dark Sun should be something constantly that comes across to the characters when they're in cities or in places where they should be reminded that most people look absolutely done. So again, you get the people that live for the moment. You get very few people that see a bright future in Dark Sun, in the old Dark Sun, and the rest are just absolutely broken people. And you want to remind the players of that every time the characters are encountering that stuff, right? That no matter how, like, you could say one city is a little better than the other, and you might see people a little bit more peaceful, and you can express that to show differences between the cities, a quality of life. But still, players should be reminded quite often in Dark Sun, it feels like the end of the world for a lot of people. Like there's no tomorrow to fight for. There's no war you can fight and take this back from someone. And in a weird way, what it takes to survive in Dark Sun is so hard that actually some of these evil tyrants have good systems that work. That that makes it even more messed up, because you can't afford to even have a good guy who comes in who doesn't know what they're doing, because even the worst of the worst leaders have had to go. uh, They have to give that part up if they are to even have people, a city, or a place to even rule over. That's how quickly people can just die off. And so, even the evil rulers in almost every case in Dark Sun are people that had to come up with some very creative ways to keep things going. So, in a strange way, these evil tyrants become somewhat decent at their shit. You might be surprised at who you see working for them, because they need things to go regardless of their twisted mindset. You can be as crazy as you want, but if your people can't survive, you have nobody to rule over. Tyrant, you're just looking at dirt. So, what a weird, messed up place to be. So, in some cases, you could even find yourself in a situation where you agree more with the evil tyrant, because every competing force outside of that is evil in its own right. Everybody, like, you can find, because of the oppression, it's almost like if you're not trying to play the hero character, a sacrificial character, if you want to survive in Dark Sun, this is what makes it twisted. You you have to play it in a gray zone most of the time. It can be hard to know who's good or who's evil, who you should side with. It's meant to be that messed up. That's not a break in the system. That's an actual thing that should be how it is, right? There you go. So Monday I'll be doing third edition D&D, and I'll be opening that one up to the public, at least for the live stream. So during live time, I'm going to do that because it's been an extremely busy week, unexpected like life things happening. Again, if this took care of my bills, I wouldn't be so committed to other things. I just commit myself to this, but it doesn't. So that's just life, occasionally, very rarely, getting me off the loop that I'm on, right? So that happened this week. Very odd week. I like to be consistent, but it happened. So I had some things to do earlier. I don't even have much time to do this. I have to actually go and do more stuff before I get some sleep tonight. Uh, but that's where it is, baby. That's where it is. Monday is third edition, and then I'll do another off script, but based on mechanics on Tuesday. I'll do more Dungeons and Dragons next week. So let's talk about my upcoming schedule stuff. Good stuff. Tomorrow I'll finally be covering the game The Morrow Project. Man, I look forward to that. And then Monday, third edition. On the off script on Tuesday, I'll be covering the game mechanics for Flash Gordon and the Warriors of Mongo. I got a members now. Then we get to members only content. Most Scarred role playing game Wednesday, August 26th, and then I'll be doing members only. That's the D&D content. Conan and Rid Sonya modules by TSR and members, and that will be a Thursday, the 27th. On the 28th, I'll be doing members only basic fantasy RPG based off of D&D. But then we're getting back to public streams. On the 29th, I'll be covering the game Over the Edge. On September 1st, on that off script, I'll be covering game mechanics for Land of the Rising Sun and Dawn Patrol. Members only that week, I'll be covering the Dungeon Master's Guide for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. And then so that's September 3rd. September 4th is D&D, and it's going to be members only, the Battle System and the Greyhawk Wars. Now, some people have been really looking forward to this. So September 5th, I'll be covering the game Cyberpunk 2020. For September's first members only, That will be on September 9th. I'll be covering the game Mutants and Masterminds. On September 10th, I'll be doing members only D&D Keep on the Borderlands. And then on September 11th, I'll be covering the game Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Both of those, the Keep on the Borderlands and the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, are AD&D 1E modules. On September 12th, I'll be covering the game Knights of the Round Table. On the 15th, the game mechanics I will cover on off script will be Wizard's Realm and Doctor Who, the role-playing game. Members only on the 17th and 18th, I'll be covering first on the 17th of September, Magic Encyclopedia volumes. That's for AD&D 1E. And then on the 18th, I'll be covering the game Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. On September 19th, I'll be covering the game Ardawan. Members only on September 23rd, I'll be covering the game Aces and Eights. Members only on September 24th, I'll be covering the Castle Guide for AD&D 2nd edition. On September 25th, members only, I'll be covering Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition's Book of Vile Darkness. Then, on September 26th, I'll be covering the game Bubblegum Crisis, sort of based on anime. And then the last stream of September, the last stream I'm scheduled up to right now, is an off-script stream covering the game mechanics of Attack of the Humans and Men in Black. There you go, baby. That is the upcoming stream schedule right there. And things should go back to stable pretty much like right away. Sorry, I'm not staying on for like an hour or so tonight. I figured I'd just get on and make a few comments, talk to you for a second, let you know what's going on, tell you I love you. I'm not ignoring you. It's just I'm slightly busy.